Coming up today, in a move sure to infuriate Korea, UNESCO is reportedly seriously considering adding facilities in Japan that housed enslaved Korean laborers during World War II to its World Heritage List. In a rare move, the South Korean government approves a plan by civic groups to meet with North Korean officials to prepare for a possible inter-Korean event next month. Plus, US officials have reportedly identified the two men who are said to have attacked an event in Texas exhibiting cartoons of the Prophet Mohammed. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, May 5th. Thanks for joining us on this Children's Day here in Korea. I'm Mark Broome. And we start this morning with a worrying development. Japanese wartime facilities that housed enslaved laborers during World War II are on the verge of being added to the highly respected UNESCO World Heritage List. Japanese media is reporting that UNESCO's advisory committee has recommended sites of Japan Meiji Industrial Revolution in 8 prefectures be registered as World Cultural Heritage Sites during its meeting to be held in Germany in July. The 23 industrial sites, which include facilities in which tens of thousands of Koreans were forced to work during Japan's colonial rule of Korea. As you would expect, the Korean government is deeply opposed to the move, condemning Japan for seeking to portray its history of aggression as an industrial revolution, without apology or remorse for the Koreans who suffered so terribly there. South Korea has taken the first step toward holding a possible ceremony marking the 15th anniversary of the landmark June 15th North-South Joint Declaration. Seoul's Unification Ministry says it has approved a South Korean civic group's request to meet with North Koreans to discuss planning the event. They will hold talks with representatives from the North for 2 days in China from this Tuesday. The ministry says the group also plans to hold a separate civilian-level cultural and academic event along with this planned ceremony. The June 15th declaration was adopted between leaders of the Koreas in June 2000 after various diplomatic meetings between the North and South. Now, with North Korea's latest detention of a South Korean college student, the regime is now holding 4 South Korean nationals. The government here says it will work for the swift release of its citizens, but there are lingering doubts about its ability to make that happen. Our Hwang Sang-yi has this report.
South Korea on Monday urged Pyongyang to release the latest South Korean citizen to be detained by the regime.
The government strongly demands that North Korea swiftly free Ju Won-moon so that he can return to his family.
The 21-year-old Jew has been identified as a permanent resident of the U.S. and a student at New York University. North Korea claims he was arrested in late April while trying to enter the country illegally. The South's Unification Ministry said it would work for Ju's swift release, but there are lingering doubts about its ability to succeed. Ju is not the only South Korean national to be detained in Pyongyang. A South Korean missionary has been held since late 2013 on suspicion of spying and allegedly trying to set up underground churches. In March, Pyongyang said it had detained 2 South Korean citizens and accused them of working as spies for Seoul's National Intelligence Service. South Korea says it has offered to hold talks with the North on the issue. It's also sought help from countries with embassies in both Koreas, but to no avail. With the clock ticking, experts say the government should consider all measures to protect its citizens.
Whether it's holding under-the-table negotiations, dispatching an envoy, or using mediators such as Russia, I think it's an urgent matter that must be resolved through inter-Korean talks.
Experts say such detainments will become more frequent if inter-Korean relations remain frosty. They add that the 4 detainees will likely be used as bargaining chips should the two Koreas sit down for talks. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea's chief nuclear envoy is in Washington for talks on how to restart the long-stalled 6-party talks on North Korea's denuclearization. Speaking to reporters on Monday, Hwang Jung-guk said he will meet with his American counterpart Sung Kim later in the day to exchange assessments of the current situation on the Korean peninsula and their respective countermeasures. The discussions are also expected to focus on ways to move forward preliminary talks aimed at meeting, on the one side, North Korea's demand for the unconditional resumption of talks and Washington's insistence that Pyongyang first show commitment towards denuclearization before any formal negotiations begin. Hwang is scheduled to meet with his Chinese counterpart Yu Da-wei in Beijing on Wednesday. President Park Geunhye was back at work on Monday after feeling under the weather for a few days. Meeting with her senior secretaries, the president stated her positions on the recent bipartisan agreement on a public pension reform, the so-called bribery list scandal, and criticism of her Japan policies. Choi Sun reports.
Upon her return from a week-long break due to an illness, President Park Geunhye addressed bipartisan efforts to revise the country's deficit-ridden public employee pension system. However, she expressed disappointment that the reform plan will only reduce the public burden next year by $3 million a day.
개혁의 폭과 20년이라는 긴 세월의 속도가 당초 국민들이 기대했던 수준에는 미치지 못해서 매우 아쉽게 생각합니다.
The president also raised concerns about a trade-off deal between the two parties to raise the national pension coverage to 50% of a subscriber's nominal income level.
해당 부처와도 사전에 충분히 논의하고 국민적 공감대를 형성한 후에 신중히 결정해야 한다고 생각합니다.
As for a recent bribery scandal involving the country's political heavyweights, President Park vowed to eradicate corruption and sever the collusive ties between politics and business. She said that 2 pardons granted to Sung Wan-jong, a deceased businessman at the center of the scandal, should be investigated and a president's right to grant a pardon reviewed. President Park has been under pressure to revise her Japan policy amid concerns Korea has fallen into diplomatic isolation following Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent U.S. visit. She responded by saying Abe has become the target of criticism in the U.S. after his failure to address and apologize for Japan's wartime sex slavery system while addressing Congress. President Park urged officials to continue her 2-track approach of taking a hardline stance on historical issues while exercising diplomacy to maintain good relations with regional powers, a move which analysts say reflects her confidence in her foreign policies. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And while the president asks for public approval over changes to the National Pension Fund, the agreement between the rival parties appears to be fraying already. They are still in a tug-of-war over the revisions, with some dissenting ruling party lawmakers saying more discussions are needed. Ji Myung-gil has more.
Lawmakers will vote this week on a long-awaited bill that will revise the pension system for public servants, following an agreement by the rival parties over the weekend. But there is a brewing controversy between them over possible revisions to the National Pension Fund. The main opposition party favors revisions that would raise the amount that pension subscribers would receive in payouts each month after they retire from 40% of their annual income to 50%. Under the plan, a person who earns roughly $920 a month would receive $460 a month instead of $370. Some ruling party members have objected to the plan because the government will still need to find more money to cover the cost of the plan, either through taxation or by raising premiums. But they have yet to offer an alternative. According to the National Pension Research Institute, the number of National Pension Fund beneficiaries will exceed the number of contributors by 2060 because of the country's growing elderly population and low fertility rate. The Welfare Ministry predicts the National Pension Fund will be completely depleted by 2060. A special National Assembly committee will be formed to draw up a relevant bill on the opposition party's plan, with the goal of passing the bill by September. Also, the rival parties predict that some $300 billion in government funds will be saved over the next 70 years if the reforms to the public servant pension system are successful. Korea's pension system for public servants has long faced a looming crisis and run a deficit of $11 billion every year until last year. Kim Young-git, Arirang News.
Authorities in the U.S. city of Dallas have reportedly identified the suspected gunman who targeted a competition to draw caricatures of the Prophet Mohammed. Citing officials, U.S. media has identified the gunman as 30-year-old Elton Simpson and his 34-year-old roommate Nadir Sufi. Now, carrying assault rifles and wearing body armor, the men opened fire outside the contest venue, shooting a security guard in the leg before being shot dead by an armed police officer. Officials think Simpson sent several tweets before the shooting, including one with the hashtag #TexasAttack. The organizer of the event, a well-known advocate of free speech in the US, said the incident reflected the need for such conferences. In the wake of some high-profile crashes, and most recently the Germanwings suicide crash in the French Alps, international air safety watchdogs are expected to push for installing video cameras in cockpits. Industry officials, safety experts and others familiar with the issue told the Wall Street Journal that the aviation arm of the United Nations is expected to make a big push later this year for such changes. Pilots' unions are deeply opposed to the move due to privacy concerns and the prospect of images being misused by crash investigators, prosecutors or the media. However, the report says any decision will likely take years and its outcome is far from certain. On top of that, individual countries would still retain the ultimate enforcement authority. Now, the Korean military offers several ready-made meals to its troops, but they've long been criticised for lacking variety and being rather bland. But there is some good news for soldiers because the military's top brass have decided to spruce up the menu. And Na Hyung-young tells us more.
In the U.S., military ration packs used to be called meals ready to expel instead of meals ready to eat. And things haven't been much different in Korea. The history of the Korean ration pack goes back to the 1960s when Korea sent more than 300,000 troops to fight in the Vietnam War. Since then, the quality and variety of the meals have come a long way. Currently, the Korean Army has 4 types of ration packs for its soldiers, categorized by the way the meals are made. The most popular type these days is this one right here. It has a flameless heater inside that will warm up the main dish without water or fire. All you need to do is pull this string right here, wait a few minutes, then voila, your food is ready to go. But there's always room for improvement. For one, many servicemen point to a lack of variety in the meals. Although there are 11 main dishes right now, the soldiers say some of them are very similar to each other and there's really no option for vegetarians. But all that's about to change. The military says it's planning to expand the options by increasing the number of dishes to 36, including curry and Korea's iconic bibimbap. They will also bring in existing outdoor camping products that are more affordable than packs currently used in the military.
We plan to incorporate civil products so soldiers can use them immediately and also save the state budget by replacing the stockpiles.
The military will also lighten the weight of the packages. Officials hope these efforts will boost soldiers' morale and help them better protect the country. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Now, as we mentioned at the top of the newscast today, May 5th is Children's Day here in Korea, a national holiday set aside for Korea's youngest people to have some fun with their family. And just before this holiday, an educational facility conducted a survey on thousands of elementary school students, asking who they appreciate the most in their lives. Our Won Ji-yeon has the results.
Who do you appreciate the most? About 8 out of 10 children in Korea say it's their parents. That's according to a recent survey of nearly 23,000 elementary students conducted by home learning program Ice Cream. The survey showed that a whopping 81% of children said parents are the people they appreciate the most in their lives. Friends and others both came in second place at 7%, followed by teachers and family relatives. When asked why they appreciate their parents, about 28% said it's because of the comfort and sympathy they get from their mom and dad. Other reasons included kindness, encouragement, and unconditional love. So how do Korean children show their appreciation? A majority prefer to directly tell their parents at least once or twice a day, while others turn to physical affection, letters, and text messages. However, a program official pointed out that kids are often too shy to express themselves, stressing that parents must initiate more conversations with their children starting from when they're young. Won Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. If you're watching us in Korea, have a nice Children's Day off, and we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.